So we are 1 week into this new administration and the SHTF threat profile has changed. So I want to bring this information to you so you can better prepare yourself for some of these possible threats here in the near future, especially because some of them are much more closer to home now than they used to be. So before we get started, I want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. And thanks to them, I can get out here, give you this information, and test out gear and equipment related to preparedness while providing you with my honest feedback thereafter. So a big thanks to Midway USA. And yes, this is the 20-inch M16A4-ish build that you all voted on, and things are getting started with that. So look forward to that in the future. Now, the first threat profile that I want to discuss is something that was very obvious that we talked about a lot on this channel, but things have changed ever since this new administration took office and made cartels foreign terrorist organizations. Now, on January 22nd, we had an American hiker shot down by the southern border. And that stuff used to not happen. So Americans might be on the menu now when it comes to cartel retaliatory strikes. They used to avoid attacking Americans because they wanted to evade harsher penalties. But now being labeled foreign terrorist organizations means that they already are facing those harsher penalties regardless. So you should anticipate the fact that they're not as concerned about whether or not they hurt Americans in the process of doing their business. Remember back in 2023, when 4 South Carolinians were kidnapped down in Mexico by cartel members, and 2 of them ended up being killed. Well, once the cartel found out that they were Americans, they actually gave up their own gangsters as penance to the US government because they wanted to avoid those harsher penalties. Now, there's not as much worry about avoiding penalties because it's already there. So I would anticipate Americans being targeted more frequently, and it's something you should definitely be concerned about, especially if you know there's cartel activity in your area. Now, another SHTF threat profile that we need to discuss is related to the fact that this election was so contentious and created a lot of political tension throughout the country. And now we have additional threats ramping up from generally the left side of the aisle, talking about how they're going to get revenge on conservatives or on ICE or on the federal government as a whole. And this should concern you because there's a little bit more to this than just people being unhinged. Now, leftists have basically ramped up their online threats, and they're starting to use codes and things of that nature. And they're even talking about things like cute winter boots, right? And this is a code name for them acquiring weapons and developing schemes in order to target Trump supporters or conservatives or federal agents who are involved in deportation or anything along those lines. And you're seeing all kinds of advice pop up online about how to vandalize government vehicles or what type of weapons to start investing in. And it is becoming a little bit, let's just say, concerning because some of the people involved with these conversations are clearly not mentally stable. Now, as someone who is prepared, this is why you need to be concerned about this, because first off, it's domestic. So it's here at home. There's no protecting you via, a border stopping a foreign nation from entering the country. And the other thing to keep in mind is that they are using tactics to target who they perceive as being Trump supporters or conservatives in general. So even if you're not a conservative, if you're not a Republican, maybe you are a liberal yourself, but maybe just not as extreme when it comes to being a leftist, well, if you prepare, and so maybe you own firearms, maybe you store food, maybe you have a homestead of some kind, right? They're going to assume you're probably a Trump supporter regardless. And especially if you advertise your support outwardly, you should definitely be paying attention to this right now. Because these people are trying to develop plans to swat you, to basically call immigration and let them know that you are harboring, illegal immigrants at your home or your business. So they're trying to get the federal agents to have to get, first off, their agenda clogged up, but second off, pay you a visit that could result in a dangerous interaction. And they're also trying to make your life harder in general, aka ruining your day through typical juvenile acts of vandalism. But the violent part is there as well, and that element is something that probably should concern all of us the most, because they are talking about getting armed. They are talking about using those arms to protect people for what they consider to be unjust moves by the federal government and unjust moves by people who support the new administration. And these people will perceive you as a Trump supporter very easily, even if you are not, because these are the same people who assume that if you're in the United States and you're Hispanic, that you're illegal and you're in danger, which is clearly, obviously, not the case. So this is the new SHTF threat profile as of right now. Things can change, things can develop. We still have all the geopolitical things happening internationally as well. However, we have to give some time to this new administration to take foot in order to see how that turns out, whether or not it escalates or begins de-escalation. But as of right now, we don't have that information to work with, so we still have to view that as a potential threat. But these are the threats that are right here at home, happening right this second, that you needed to be aware of. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments if you think that these threats are valid, or if you think that maybe, especially regarding online threats via leftists, if that's just more hot air, or if you think it has some validity to it. And anything else you need from me, you can go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.